This file is for informational purposes only and is without prejudice. This is intended for all those who live here in North America that are socially conscious and have been active to somehow improve the way things are for everyone, and secondly to provide some information to those who, in some way, support them in their endeavors. Understand, first of all, that I will not be mentioning any ways to improve our present social system. It is not about reform or mitigation of existent everyday problems, so anyone that is involved with such things will hear nothing of value to them. If you are still listening and have come to one of these to conclusion, then this is meant for you, and it will be just what you have been seeking. Conclusion 1. It is money, or the lack of money, that is the underlying cause of the problems we face both as individuals and collectively. Conclusion 2. The social system that was used during the hand tool era, when much of what we require to live well was scarce, has been completely invalidated by the advent of our modern technologies, and therefore must be abandoned in its entirety and replaced with a system that is in tune with the times. I will be describing a social system that does not involve the use of money in any form, and that originated in our science community, a social system devised by the same group of people that also devised our technologies, which now produces an abundance of the things we require to live well. No other group understands technology as well as they do. This is all about the plan they have provided to accommodate the technology that they also provided. They named it technocracy, technological social design. This is about the reorganization of the entire continent of North America into a self-sustaining area of Earth wherein all of the people here can gain equal though not identical access to all that we have here. A new social order, one that is worthy of the intelligence of humankind. I will not include details of this design, as this information can be had at the click of a mouse on the internet. Those who can grok this will check it out for themselves.
First, there must be a plan for assembling the infrastructure. Technocracy has one that will work. Next step would be to have between those who are actively following the plan a code to live by. Without one alignment of the amount of force required to manifest, it won't happen. So use this one for now. It will facilitate the creation of an interrelational social system that does not use money in any form. A brand new type without a 1% and without a 99%. A flat hierarchy. Next would be to have a common objective, one that is both significant and attainable in the not too distant future. This is also included here. And the objective, if it does not blow your mind, will astound you, as it makes moot most social activism of today. The plan will do this by achieving most activists' goals as side effects. Part of our code is to reject for now the think globally mindset. Hippies may have not invented global thinking, but they for sure popularized it, and thereby made inroads for the United Nations to all but establish a world order. This has resulted in the living hell in which we find ourselves today. It was our major frack up. Far too many hippies who came to Occupy were cognizant of the error, but still went on about it, perhaps out of habit, or were just too embarrassed to recant and desist. Many of them have hard-won idyllic country places to return to after showing up at protests, rallies, demonstrations, where they can live with friends, also in denial of the mistake. Although it is philosophically correct, it was a tragic mistake. So doing an about-face, like I did, is beyond most of them. So do not look to them for directions to go in. These hippies were at the goal line, then they fumbled. Those who dared to occupy must pick up the football of our future and take it past the goal line, or all is lost to the ancient cultures of the Near East, Mid East, Far East, and our future will be stagnation. Existing as second-class citizens in our homeland. As of now, there is no stopping the United Nations-driven New World Order. The best that we can do now is to deny them North America. We have a detailed plan for stopping them. It is called Technocracy's Total Conscription Program. Those who came to the Vancouver tent city were mostly geriatric-led sovereign nationalists bent on reforming the political system. There were scads of Luddites. It was organized and staffed by youths for the most part. The only valid advice I can give to those who would dare to occupy is, do not trust anyone over 45 unless you have a 45. As a scientist, I do not deal in trust. No scientist does, as trust cannot be quantified. We only deal with reality. And so does the plan I've delved into for a quarter-century. It is both real and achievable if we are able to occupy our spines and demand it. I'll vouch for that. During the 25 years I was a member in good standing of Technocracy Inc., I functioned in several capacities, such as helping produce a magazine. When something I wrote was included, the article was accredited to staff. Few of us signed any of what we wrote, as none of us were there to promote ourselves. Any promotion was restricted to either the plan or the membership organization. I was living a double life. During my time with Technocracy, at the same time I also continued being part of the activist scene, in a low-profile way. I continued to connect with any and every socially conscious group I heard about. If I did not show up in person, I at least found out what their objectives were, and if they had a better plan than Technocracy. None really had any kind of a plan for change. They are all reformers or dreamers. I would also note whether or not their group's objectives could be achieved via the Total Conscription Program. Something of extreme importance to me, as year upon year I scrutinized the plan. Beyond righting wrongs, not one group had a worthwhile plan that was usable for establishing an egalitarian social system. None, not any, zilch. In the 1980s, enhanced by personal computers, the few hippies that had like myself adopted the slogan "money is not where it is at" had devised a complex barter system that became popular, then understandably was dropped. It was a valid attempt, but was doomed to failure. The sad result was that those who wanted a different system, not just an improved one, gave up or joined the reformers. During my half-century as part of the counterculture social activism now, and then I'd lend a group or an individual activist my support. My perspective of the grassroots and the social activist scene is as comprehensive as anyone's, I dare say. Many things made my double life tricky, as the two scenes were so different. At Technocracy we spent most of the time discussing the facts of whatever the topic was. When facts were offered without the source, we were encouraged not to accept them until verified. Those who could not keep their opinions and beliefs to themselves were shunned. There everyone shared facts, and the common dream for a better life for others. At Technocracy it was what was being said that mattered, not who was saying it. There were few misunderstandings. Conflict was rare. It was ability to function that came first, not personality. In contrast to the grassroots, where personality comes first and self-promotion is more than acceptable. Those that don't strut get ignored. People's beliefs rule supreme, and most of what anyone says is opinion. Misunderstandings are commonplace, and, as a result, there is always a lot of envy and conflict happening. People soon learn to keep their facts to themselves, or be shunned. Among the grassroots folks, it is not what was being said that counts, but rather who was saying it, and the way they were saying it. Both groups dug talking of observations, and, although both desired a better life for all, beyond that they were as much alike as chalk and cheese are alike. I sure did identify strongly with the Occupy movement. When I am speaking of it, I am speaking of me. When I speak about myself, I am speaking about the movement. We are one. I split from Technocracy not long before the Occupy demonstrations began. After a decade of working on my educator CD project, I had about 80 at the time when the tents went up. I gave away over 100 during the occupation event. The Occupy movement fizzled out. Some say it did not, but rather morphed into many different special interest groups that went about competing for media coverage and trying to gain some advantage for their mini cause, just like any of the special interest groups they spoke out against. Don Quixote tilted at windmills, generally speaking activists that are reformers built at mirrors. Some sheep will say it flopped because no one there was capable, willing, worthy, and nice-looking enough to lead those who would dare to occupy. For those who think it is over, no, it is not. For me, any attempts to analyze the movement will yield nothing useful. I adopted the attitude that it was what it was, and is what it is. Being at our fabulous tent city provided me with the best time I'd had in a decade. I was a functional part of the cause for 60 days, only during the daylight hours. As I arrived there each morning, I first just gaped at those who had been there all night in admiration. Although many of them regarded me with suspicion, as attempts to co-opt the movement were raging constantly. Those who dare to occupy are my kind of people, so I support them in every way I can. As to making new friends goes, I have no friends that are political reformers, and I tend to hang out with people who are involved with things that they can understand and leave the rest to specialists. My attitude is, if you are not fit to hold the office, then do not question its policies. This file is not about me, yet I keep going on about me. This is because the majority of the grassroots folk will not pay attention to people they know nothing about unless they are tourists who have money to leave behind. One last bit about Occupy. I think of the Occupy movement as a probe driven deeply into the establishment to better see how to make the grand coup. It goes like this: first we take Manhattan, then ignore Berlin and the EU, and the Orient too. Back to this code we are adopting to live by. Just now we need to agree that East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet. We can only coexist in our own half of Earth is all. My favorite quote about leadership is, "We don't need no stinking leaders," attributed to Emiliano Zapata Salazar. This is true in our case because we now have the plan to guide us in the construction of a social system that we can relate to on an individual basis, one that also relates to those involved as individuals, one that will include 10% of Earth's population. At first this boggles one's mind, so to get a grip on the concept I think of it as being a really big commune. It will be 27 million square kilometers in Indiana size and have about 666 million people that are free in everyone's way of thinking. Just so we all know what we are talking about when referring to our commune as our technate. I have heard about and read about communes most of my life. I was a woofer. I have visited a lot of communes, I've lived on them, and even helped found one. Without exception, communes are unstable due to being undefendable, to not having an uninterruptible supply of resources, or not enough people/machines to do the work. All of which are required components of stability. The commune discussed here has these aspects covered and can stay together outlasting its founding members, their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and on and on. Our technate can be manifested in the quickest possible way if the people of this continent demand that the total conscription program go ahead. Now to describe how our technate will operate in contrast with the current system, that those who dare to occupy are so bent upon reforming a bit at a time, and for the UPM 18th time. Although scads of them have seen the futility of it all, and have opted out and gone back to just coping with the burgeoning social crisis. Citizenship in the time of crisis. How the people of a nation behave in time of crisis decides largely whether they deserve, in the judgment of nature, Gaia, to survive or perish. For the people of this continent, the verdict will soon be known. The real rulers of our nation-states have been busy for system change, not the 1% they are, but being counters. By the way, anyone born on this continent can and should be thought of as being a citizen of the continent. Such people belong to the continent, and the continent belongs to them. In our new social dynamic we call it the technate. No one is permitted to be employed until they are 25. Between the ages of 25 and 45 the citizen is under an obligation to contribute, each according to their own abilities. At age 45 everyone gets retired. As to the way it functions, the all of the soon-to-be combined nations are committed to regard the person as the social equal of all other citizens, and to look after them. The way it has been in the still separate nation-states, neither the obligations of the citizens nor the responsibilities of the nation are clearly defined. In our technate they will be. Even the courts have difficulty at times to decide the nature or degree of these inter-responsibilities. The duties of citizenship consist mainly in paying taxes, voting at political elections, observing restrictive laws, and fighting in time of war, if a citizen comes within a certain category. The benefits consist mainly of the right to chisel each other according to the rules of the game, the right to be tried in court if charged with committing a crime, provided they survive being zapped by a taser during the arrest or preliminary investigation, the right to eat globally and get sick locally, the right to receive a subsistence relief if circumstances justify it, the right to see those who commit crimes against their property punished when and if they are caught and convicted. The right to sue others, at a price, for almost anything that the person can prove as being a wrong against them, but just what the citizen is to contribute to the society is vague and inconclusive, and the specified benefits to the citizen are equally vague and often dubious. We think that citizenship implies more than just being handed a piece of paper that says you are a citizen. It denotes an attitude of mind and a form of behavior on the part of the citizen toward the social organization of which they are a part. It implies a loyalty to and a positive and active interest in the welfare of the society. This is to be contrasted with a grasping, selfish quest after personal advantage regardless of the effect on the society or on others of the population. Citizenship implies a working agreement between the citizen and the society which will function to the advantage of both. To be effective, such an agreement must be clear and specific in its statements of the responsibilities of both the citizen and the social entity. The Go West attitude in our sovereign nations today, partly because of this vagueness and looseness of the contract of citizenship, people arriving here often take citizenship lightly. The benefits to the individual are not direct and positive, but too often subject to the arbitrary decision of local politicians, those who facilitate immigration, or politically appointed bureaucrats. Police and fire protection, for example, are usually administered by political appointees, whose loyalty to the political party, or being related to someone you elected to find a job for you is often more influential in gaining the appointment, and a qualification for the job to be done. Such as operating a state-of-the-art municipal incinerator, that when operated to design specifications vents air that can be cleaner than ambient air, but when run by those who got their job there as payment for helping someone get elected becomes an environmentalist's nightmare. This brings to mind the water scandal that sickens so many right in our own backyard, as a result of untrained operators of the purification technology. How long are environmental activists going to continue to shift blame to the technology, we wonder? Fritter away your time and energy, if you will, by attempting to protect fish or fowl. The shocking reality we are pointing out here is that by placing the very existence of creatures you adore in the care of anyone by using democratic methods, you sign that creature's death warrant. In our technate, nothing can be killed and sold for profit, as money will not exist. Our functional administrators, backed up by our military, will see to it that all attempts to fish within the area bounded by our security and prosperity perimeter will be earned back. Then you can say no way to Norway and make it stick. Guided by unmuffled science, our functional person will soon make the waters off the coast of our technate a safe haven for the sea creature you so adore. All fish farms will be inland and isolated from each other. By now you are thinking this all sounds quite desirable, but the powers that be will never allow it to happen. Well, how wrong you are. Get this part. The laws are already in place to facilitate the creation of our technate, as I am describing to you the first ever top-down social revolution, so do not think that if you become active you will be acting in opposition to those now in control. How does what those who were educated by Technocracy Inc. have been up to since before World War II compare to occupying fishermen's place of business for as long as the cops let you? Meanwhile, in the context of the democracy you cling so fervently to, we can't stand up for science until all the plutonium peters out anti-change, for the better you make could be, and are being declared void by those you elect if it does not mesh with the World Trade Organization, one of the tentacles of the United Nations. One example that is near and dear to my heart and eyesight is making association with pot legal, the United Nations using another tentacle, the World Health Organization, and still another tentacle. Codex has forbidden Canada's federal government to make pot legal, and the same is true south of the 14th parallel. You should know these things now, you do. Nothing I've said should become a reason to stop your lobby for more science, as what you are doing is hastening real social change. It may get people of science to take their heads out from under their fume hoods and endorse the plan, since it originated in the science community. It is their plan, and most of them, the younger ones that is, do not even know about it. They are too busy at work for the man to check out the plan, which is a result of science applied to the social field. Everyone who stands up for science becomes a catalyst for the advancement of our civilization. So be proud as you carry on your cause. At this juncture there is no ongoing cause that is more important. Again, I digress so back to why adopting this code of conduct and statement of unity is vital to system change activists. Many of the contracts which the North American citizens now have with their government are in the nature of restrictions or compulsions which must be obeyed. These, along with the numerous distasteful taxes which must be paid, stimulate in them resentment, or at least an impatience with the social authority. They often think of their citizenship as some sort of a burden, rather than as an advantage. Being able to beat the system has become laudable. And to strip as much as possible away from the citizen is the role of their minions, the civil serpents. The way in which the Americas were settled partly explains the failure to take citizenship responsibilities seriously. If we include immigrants that are currently arriving here, our nation's quota of immigrants is set by United Nations, not those you elected. So when you feel like hurting someone, hurt the ones responsible for a change. Why don't you? All immigrants have different intentions, and few of these intentions can be conducive to creating a mood of citizenship. Many came to escape the troubles of an overcrowded homeland, but, nevertheless, when they arrived they tried to establish here, as nearly as possible, a replica of their homeland environment. Others came because they heard it was easier to make money in North America, and in Europe, or wherever they are from. They came to gain a fortune, that they might go back home, to live out their days in comparative luxury. North America has become an melted pot asylum for the oppressed, a haven of refuge for the persecuted, a land of opportunity for the greedy. Having abandoned one country, immigrants seem to be in no great hurry to take on another, at least, not wholeheartedly, as a permanent and deep-seated proposition. Yes, there are exceptions, of course, but these are in the minority. The motivation for the current expansion westward follows much the same pattern as that for the original settlement. It was a tendency to move away from an unpleasant situation in quest of a more pleasant one. Our populace has an acquired instinct of trying to solve the problem by escaping from it, as evidenced by ever-increasing use of tranquilizers, sleeping pill-type prescription drugs, inventing a myriad of mental illnesses as a cover-up for pathetic attempts to escape taking responsibility for the conditions of other citizens. Did those who gave them birth or raised them, if they had parents in our divorce-mangled society, forget to install the capacity to feel shame? It looks that way. Even today many citizens are looking for a better place to go as conditions worsen in their community. But, looking around, they see none. There is no escape. Let us emphasize that the problems must be faced and solved on this continent, and that within the next few years. Conditions up to now have not compelled people to think seriously of the meaning of citizenship. Their first concern has been to get by, and their next concern has been to get ahead. When a crisis comes to a country, the first thought of most is, can I escape its effects? Here a generic example is called for. Thousands come here from war or threatened nations of the East to Canada and the US of A, get citizenship and go back where they came from. When armed conflict breaks out in their homeland, it is our sons and daughters who put their lives on the line to defend them from each other. Can you not understand that you offer up for slaughter your progeny to comply with NATO and other agreements, which are all contracts made between people who are dead now? At first this is shocking to learn of. Now that you know about it, we wonder, are you truly okay about your taxes being used to pay the costs of saving their sorry cowardly asses, including the cost of their passage to and fro? Then when the killing is over for a while, they vote in our elections for their own kind, who will act for them in their absence, after they have returned to carry on where they rightfully belong. In the Eastern Hemisphere. Speaking of foreigners, I was told by a tourist that Canadians are often the brunt of jokes where she came from because they can't treat us however they will, take from us whatever they will, and as long as they say sorry, we will lump it. Rather than making lumps on them, as they would do to us if we did the same things to them in their country. Wake up. 50 years ago those who were welcomed here were poor common folk, and very different than those that come here now. Although I can still think of them as people, I will not ever allow myself to think of these people as fellow citizens, if I ever think of them at all. Yes, never. Allowing a person who arrived here 5 years ago who cannot understand either of our languages and has never been inside a school to vote while refusing to let a 17-year-old political science student who grew up here is madness. I was born here, so what? I cannot vote in some elections, not being a property owner, but the immigrant who arrived here a decade ago and bought a house can. Now perhaps you can at least begin to understand. We will not be having any elections in our technate. No one votes. We must begin with a clean slate. Anything less would tend to take away our ability to shape our common destiny. And why the functional administrators of our technate will neither enforce nor even recognize as valid and binding any contract made by any individuals, corporations, nations, etc. of the Eastern Hemisphere. The United Nations has been able to force compliance with its edicts by any and all nations, be they members or not. Even the omnipotent Uncle Sam, who is going about removing information regarding such things as country of origin etc. from our food labels. Take note, all who are into food safety, when your government ignores you, it is done at the behest of the World Trade Organization, a tentacle of the United Nations. Otherwise we might avoid buying stuff to eat that came from places like Fukushima. So hate and harass the fine people that you put into political office, if you will, but the reality is that they, like you, are powerless in this regard. When you are spoiling for a fight, be sure you know who the enemy actually is. It seems just now that you do not. Well, now you know, so act accordingly. For me, the most hurtful things in my life has been getting punished for something that I did not do. How about you? So stop hurting those you elected. The United Nations tells them what to do and what not to do. Will you swallow your shame and continue to attack your governors? Yes, many will, because they have become the dupes of those who would have our nation for themselves. The plan calls for an end to exporting and to importing, as any and all food can be grown, processed, and delivered in ways that are to our liking, all within our technate. Contrasted by the eat globally, then gets it locally way it is today. Understand that we are describing and engineered social design. It has been scrutinized by countless people over the decades since it was first presented, and fear not protection from the usual ways the United Nations backs up its edicts has been included by the engineers who put together the plan. The knee-jerk reaction of many these days is often, can I capitalize on it? The business people, housewives, the workers, the jobless, and especially the street people all react the same way. They still think first in terms of individual security and advantage. In North America, there have developed two general classifications of citizens from the standpoint of the guardians of a corporate state. These are the solid citizen and the drifter. The solid citizen is the more respected, having gained an economic foothold in the community, which provides one with a more or less preferential advantage in the game of chiseling. They belong to a prominent church, men are members of some businessman's fraternity, or its equivalent, such as a labor union, or, in the case of a female, to a woman's club, and for many others a gender-neutral clique. They all contribute to charity, and make an effort to pay owed debts when they come due. Some achieve greater success than others, but, from the Joe boy to the bank president, the general pattern is the same. The drifter, on the other hand, is despised by the debt merchants. These types do not have permanent ties, and do not become deeply fixated into the life of the community, where their residence is often temporary, so as not to be rigid in observance of conventions, and their being loyal to the cause of debt is frequently tenuous. They are not an asset for the banker. The solid citizens and yuppies as well accept social regimentation for an economic stake in the status quo. The hippie, the drifter, the reprobate, will rebel against social regimentation and seek, haphazardly, to find a different way of life. None of these patterns provide a framework for the citizenship of tomorrow. A new concept is needed. One positive thing to be said for those born here is this: they will put forth any effort or make any sacrifice which they regard as necessary, provided that others have to do the same thing its our way. This furnishes a basis for a new concept of citizenship and a new pattern of national behavior. But the full acceptance of the necessity for a new pattern of behavior is yet to arrive. Too many one-school people now will just avert their eyes and keep on trucking. In time of war or something major like a hurricane, there appears a greater consciousness of citizenship among the people, and is usually the case. They suddenly simulate a high degree of patriotism and rush forth to do their bit. There is a rush to the recruiting stations, to the war production plants, and to the relief and welfare agencies. Those who find nothing more useful to do, busy themselves with endorphin-producing charitable make-work projects, such as collecting food, rags, sunglasses, etc., and passing them on. We wonder to what extent this fervor is really patriotism, and to what extent it is motivated by an adventurous desire to escape the humdrum routine of life and to gain new social contacts. As a full-time participant in the Occupy Vancouver movement, I observe that the latter brought out the most people. Such fervor, however, is always short-lived. When wars drag on, the people weary of their simulated patriotism and want the war to end so they can get back to normal. Under the real conditions of scarcity of the East and the contrived scarcity here in the West, or of human toil, the great majority of the citizens have a pattern of life that is pretty much laid out for them. They must work hard to help in creating the illusion of scarcity, and to this end they are prompted by economic, moral and legalistic compulsions. They accept the mores and conventions, and the prevailing superstitions of the community in which they live. In such a society, the hard-working, God-fearing person is the good citizen. They need little regulation, for the operations are simple enough for even a poorly educated person to comprehend, and the necessity of making a living leaves one little choice of behavior. The obligations of government emerge down to keeping the lines of commerce open, complying with United Nations edicts, and to supervising the existing status of truce or belligerency with other nations. Crisis. What crisis? Understand that crisis point draws near because when a high rate of energy conversion is achieved by an area, the activities become more diversified, as it is in the West, and a higher degree of coordination is needed. A greater complexity of functions appear, most of them beyond the comprehension of the individual citizen with or without internet access, and a closer and more precise relationship between the citizen and government becomes imperative. The trend of events on the North American continent, in the direction of greater energy conversion and more complexity of operation, indicates conclusively that its people are in the midst of a social crisis, a crisis for which our grassroots people are woefully unprepared. Technocracy originated when the implications of World War II and of the post-war depression had the governments baffled. The then president of the US of A went to the science community for an analysis of all that makes up our social mechanism and how best to deal with what was to be. A small, at first that is, group of scientists and others working out of Columbia University undertook to investigate the warning symptoms and to analyze the underlying problem. The correctness of the analysis made by this technical alliance is now well known. But there has continued a general failure of the people to recognize the growing emergency. There has been an ongoing attitude that the continuous chain of crises since 1929 have been abnormal states of affairs, and that soon they would smooth out and everything would be normal again. Now 80 fracking years later we are still embroiled in the forced dwelling of an impending economic collapse. 2. Our elected leaders have been as careless about this as has the general citizenry. Operation Technate. The crisis of the 30s was held in check with the expenditure of a few billions of dollars. The crisis of the early 40s was met with the expenditure of a few hundred billions of dollars, as was the crisis of the 80s, etc. up to present times. And now we face a greater crisis than ever before. Asking guidance of an elder who was born before cell phones were being produced is irrational. It may be polite and feel proper, but the fact in this matter is that the old palliatives will not suffice. That is why the maxim about not trusting anyone over 45 is useful. No disrespect is involved. There can be no hope for a return to the so-called normalcy the elders go on about. The only solution is to meet the problem face on and to advance into a new social state on this continent of North America. The form of this new social state is already designed, in accordance with the impelling demands of a high-energy civilization. Technocracy has prepared a blueprint for the social operations of the entire continent. On this blueprint the area, its people, and its operational setup is designated as the Technate of North America. In the Technate of North America, the citizens of the entire continent will all have a contract of citizenship. This contract will specify the person's responsibilities as a citizen and the benefits they will derive from the society. There will only be one contract in our Technate. This one. It will be a working agreement between the citizen and the social organism as a whole, sufficiently comprehensive and clear that there will be a maximum of tranquility and a minimum of confusion. In general, the responsibilities of the citizen will be these. 1. Prepare themselves for life and function on this continent. This will include acquiring a basic understanding of science and how it is being applied within our Technate. 2. Report for regular, semi-annual, physical examinations. Fuzzily allowing preventative medicine not to surprise you will die soon. Crisis kind. 3. Between the ages of 25 and 45 citizens will volunteer each according to their own ability to do their share in the operational function of the continent, if and when their talents are requested by the functional administrators. 4. Refrain from sabotaging operations, from committing crimes against the welfare of other citizens, and from engaging in acts of treason against our Technate. This includes continuation of being patriotic about our homeland on a coast-to-coast basis, ignoring all the silly borders. What the frack is so difficult to accept about that? Wear your favorite nation's flag, keep saluting them if it gets you off. Surely if you could expand the nation-state you now cling to so it would have unrestricted access to all the resources required to make it self-sustaining, and be as protected as our unprecedented military might will make it, would you do it? Yes, you would. That is really all that we are proposing, so get it out of your heads that the plan is a way for Uncle Sam to take over Canada, as Uncle Sam will be assimilated too. Same for Pedro. The days of sovereign nations has passed. This is the 2012 time of changes. The Technate, in turn, will guarantee to the citizen 1. Protection. 2. Economic security from whom to whom the right to consume as it pleases them from an abundance. 3. Healthcare. 4. High educational opportunities without financial constraint or debt creation. 5. Relief from toil. 6. Wide opportunities for recreation, self-expression, etc. These guarantees will not be just ideals or dependent upon anyone's permission, as they will be functional realities. They are part of an engineering blueprint. This is the social objective of technocracy, resulting from a survey of the resources of North America, and from a careful analysis of the facts pertaining to the continent. It conforms to an engineering design for continental operations derived from these facts. No other social plan produced on this continent, or off of it, can provide as much for the citizens of North America so far. None of them even pretend to. We must prepare. To achieve this high status of citizenship, all North Americans must achieve victory in the greatest social conflict of all time, the conflict that is now upon us, between the old and the new. It means that we must abandon outmoded belief systems, the immigrant-derived traditional concepts of yesterday, and start out with a fresh new design of living built upon the facts which science and technology have gathered for us. The fight will not be easy, but rest assured it will take place, and soon. It is naive to suppose that the new social order will be quietly delivered to us before breakfast, or that it will be left by a mysterious Santa Claus while we sleep. In view of the price men have had to pay in the past for minor social gains, we can hardly expect that the greatest social advancement of all will come without effort and some discomfort now and then. Technocracy, in predicting social change on this continent, is not creating it. Technology and the large-scale use of extraneous energy, lots of machines, are doing that. We are no more creating the social change, and the weather person creates the hurricane which they predict. Like a hurricane, social change is sweeping upon us. We cannot prevent it, but we can prepare for it. The necessity of immediate action is already upon us. The time for mutual consent has passed, so the changeover may for some be nasty, and the price they pay for it high, or it can be much less drastic depending upon whether the now in progress total conscription program is accepted or ignored and resisted. For your information, we are at stage 2 already. The expected crisis looms before us. This calls for the highest order of citizenship on the part of the population of this continent. That citizenship is now in the making and gaining momentum. Hippies saying mind bending is seldom easy. If your mind is open and not already bending, this should do it. Understand that becoming a citizen of our Technate entails the breaking of any and all oaths, including those made to people now dead or to people now living. All promises, etc., any and all contracts or agreements that are meant to dictate one's future actions are to be declared null and void. We must be unencumbered so as to adapt and adjust to an entirely different social dynamic, wherein our obligations can only be current, to ourselves, to our technate, and those we can't see with our enhanced eyes. The North American trait of minding one's own affairs, not the affairs of others, will soon come back into vogue. In a usufruct way of life unconstrained by first having to get enough money, there will be no need for sharing with those who have not, as everyone will have the same access to what exists simply by using an energy accounting cell phone scanning application. We are creating a usufruct way of life. This is living life the way John L. sang about in the song Imagine. He also mentioned the need to see the plan, and now we can. Not only see it, we can be it. You are urged to dwell upon the aspects being described here before you jump at the chance to be part of it all, as unchaining themselves from bargains already struck, and other allegiances will form and not be possible. And so what? The Eastern Hemisphere will embrace, or at least accept them, whereas we will not. Technocracy shows the way. Technocracy points out that change is coming, and has determined its cause, and its direction. Technocracy, by the application of science to the social system, has defined the change in measurable terms, and has described the next most probable social state on the continent of North America. Technocracy has always exhibited the greatest patriotism and the highest statesmanship in its endeavors to make the changeover as easy as possible on the people, on the resources, and on the equipment of the continent. Many will find this next paragraph shocking or worse, but I see no need to omit or sugarcoat it. Providing return passage home, with a grubstake, for those who cannot abandon grasping for more money seems daunting, as hundreds of millions of immigrants will be wanting to move from here to a part of Earth where they can still get rich. We are the most capable of all people on the globe, and within the boundaries of our technate we have, if properly managed, an infinite supply of all we will ever need or want, so we will somehow manage it. If it results in another version of what happened with the ship St. Louis, that will not be our doing. Those who will not live where money is ignored can be given all the money and gold reserves we have to take with them as their grubstakes. As we will not be using money, and if the truth were known, we have astounding gold reserves in our technate. Canada is referred to by most humans as gold mountain. Whoa there. Do not jump to the conclusion that such an exodus will be mandatory for anyone. Just understand that it will happen in ways that cannot be anticipated is all you need to know. Those who ignore this heads up do it at their own peril. Technocracy shows the way for the citizen to go in achieving North America's destiny and in gaining a glory that will never be forgotten. Those people who struggle only for a little more private advantage in the quicksand of the price system, chanting and holding up placards that say stop doing whatever, are not the citizens of destiny. Neither are those involved in reforming and thereby perpetuating democracy with its 1%, however big-hearted and well-intentioned these misguided fools may be. Their petty desires and struggles will blacken the pages of the history of this crisis. They will be recorded as the social slag in the advancement of civilization into the coming new era. Social activists and wannabes, take note. There is still time to be a part of what is on the way in rather than that which is on the way out. Or at least drop out of that crowd so as to not be in our way. A new kind of citizenship is in the making, a citizenship that identifies itself with the destiny of the continent. How will you be remembered, if at all? The basic pattern of the new behavior which shall constitute tomorrow's citizenship is the devise one for all, and all for one. The individual must recognize that they are not alone, and cannot be alone, that their life and welfare is tied in with the life and welfare of all their fellow citizens. When they understand this, they will seek the welfare of all, if for no other reason, in order that they may continue to have the highest standard of living and freedom that the area can provide. To each the welfare of all the other citizens will be a matter of conscious concern, and become a habit. And, since every cell in the organism is of importance in the operation and the being of the whole organism, all citizens collectively will be devoted to the welfare of the individual. Thus, there will exist an intimate and positive mutualism among the citizens, such as could not take place in the competitive Eastern Hemisphere except perhaps in some hamlet or village in a remote area. There will never be a world technate, so stop worrying about that. Humans must have solid connections to the ways of their past. The things we, who were born here in the West, abhor will always be going on in the East, whereas in the West we look to the future, not the past. As foretold, 2012 is past, and it seems that the enlightenment of the human species is occurring. Meanwhile, in the physical realm we are well into the time of changes.
Too often we turn away from each other during our everyday lives as we walk our streets, fearing that we will be asked for money or be given some sales pitch or be in for a sad story. Even when we smile or just say good morning, we are becoming strangers in a strange land. In our technet there will be an opportunity for people to be friendly with one another without each suspecting that the other is out to jit them in accordance with the best techniques laid down by the establishment. Fear of strangers will diminish and in years to come fade out. Robbers and beggars will be leaving our technet for parts of Earth where they can still ply their trade. I have been giving science all the credit for showing us way. Perhaps I should also be giving some of the credit to those who have been praying for deliverance. Although, I never did think it would be mystically done for us. A very old expression comes to mind: God helps those who help themselves. Have those of great faith been shown how to proceed? Was the plan heaven sent? 2014 years ago someone we have all heard of went about throwing the money changers out of the temple. We now have a way to remove the money changers from all the temples of North America. Are we going to just ignore it?
Something to ponder, all right. But just now I will carry on with talking about our Statement of Unity, a code of conduct, and operating instructions. Our mission statement is short and to the point. We are going to put an end to buying and selling to the use of money in any form, and make possible a usufruct way of life for 10% of humankind. Our Statement of Unity and operating instructions can be derived from the things I speak of today. The part of the plan that shall serve as a blueprint for the transition through the crisis and will channel the behavior of the citizens into simplified concerted action is technocracy's program of total conscription. So occupy your spine and demand it. It is vital to taking concerted action to have a set of operating instructions for the transition, nothing written in stone, as having the flexibility to deal with an ever-changing scene is a must. With the plan as a guide, those who desire system replacement, not system reform, will not dissipate their enthusiasm and energy in ill-defined and uncoordinated actions. Total conscription provides the citizen with the easiest and nicest means of meeting the crisis, of overcoming the obstacles, and of installing our technate. The citizen who adapts to the total conscription program acquires the attitude and the direction needed for the citizenship of tomorrow, to become a positive, dynamic force in the crisis rather than be as a dust mote in the wind of change. If you think you've got what it takes, then get ready, cause it's almost time to whip it out. The unity which many people going in the same direction manifest will multiply many times the social force of the individuals acting separately. It will make the movement to North America's destiny compelling and irresistible to others. The citizen will then have left behind the hand tool era and belong to the age of technology, and the future will reflect from their eyes, for they will be looking ahead, not backward. I must at this point say that croaking all this blew my frackin' mind. And more than once. It gets better every time I hear it. This next part could be thought of as operating instructions to be followed during the transition. The citizen of destiny. This citizen will identify their personal destiny with the destiny of North America. They will not let personal ambition conflict with the operation of the social mechanism, will not attempt to divide the society in two factions, with the special interests of some opposed to the interests of others, will not join a minority pressure group which seeks to gain special advantage for that particular group at the expense of the rest, will not indulge in the acrobatics of juggling opinions in a forum or at the polls as a means of solving social problems, will not sit idly by waiting for someone else to assume responsibility for social affairs while they merely grumble and criticize. Our citizenship will be exhibited in our way of life. Behavior will synchronize with the operations of the continent, translated into terms of action which are capable of immediate application. These are some of the things that the citizen of destiny will do. Perhaps not today, perhaps not all at once, but just as soon as they are able to make the adjustments, we will streamline our citizenship activities and coordinate them with other citizens headed in the same direction. The best way anyone can do this is to check out the plan, or somehow investigate technocracy, and identify themselves with it by symbolization on the www. The plan is the only social vehicle available to the North Americans. The 2012 The time of changes has begun. If you do not at least become aware of the plan and its function, namely ending the use of money on our continent, where will you be?
For many of us these days it must be all or nothing, as we will not have the dog-eating dog horrors of the Eastern Hemisphere recreated here. Yoo-hoo. As shown by our Occupy demonstrations, we are mad as hell and not going to take it much longer. Money and its sidekick is the slave master of today, as it can, and is, being used to enslave people. It has become the slave master of today. When you examine the history of this continent, you will note that rather than allow slavery here, we fought and killed our own family members, in our only, so far that is, civil war. It should be understood that fifth columnists notwithstanding, our military makes us invincible, so being rescued by some puny army is not going to happen. Also, and just as important, let it be known that many of us who were born here are on the brink of taking a death before disinheritance attitude. I'm saying this just so you all knows what kind of people you are up against here. If you stick around and will not abandon the slave master known as money, then put in plain terms, you may not be safe here any longer.
As citizens of a new social dynamic, we will all abandon those ambitions and pursuits which are strictly a part of the price system, and which will not carry over into the culture of the technate. We will stop thinking in terms of price system security, beyond the requirements of keeping alive. We will put our eggs, all of them, in one basket, the war chest of the technocracy revolution.
In closing, let's get back to less scary things. Those who are willing to take direct action can go right to the Total Conscription website and check it out. Those who like to know a lot before they act can find the Technocracy Revolution page on Facebook and start there. The group has many who understand technocracy as well as it can be understood. The impression I gained as an insider as far as the members of Technocracy Incorporated goes is that they can be thought of as ushers, whose current assignment includes ushering their fellow citizens gracefully into the soon-to-be-happening technet of North America. Although many of them carry on the educational aspect of the organization, as far as I am concerned, the time they have to re-educate the struggling masses has run out. The tenuous state of world affairs, the march of events, and pressures from off-continent perpetrators of the status quo, the way things are, is forcing us to take action. I'm thinking that the time approaches when the explaining of the total conscription program and how any person can become a part of it should begin. Literally thousands of the members of technocracy have already died in harness attempting to educate the citizens. As the chief engineer of the Technical Alliance and founder of Technocracy Incorporated said, with provisions, it makes no difference if the public even knows about it. In the quarter century I have known of and spoken of the plan, the most common response made by rational open-minded people that had some science in their background was that the people at the top, the 1%, would never allow it to happen. Wrong. The 1% are only being counters. The founders of our countries are still the real rulers of our nation-states. Since implementation of the plan is already in stage 2, the will not be allowed excuse is not valid. The blueprint they have may have a few more details than the plan that I keep going on about is all. The need to be secretive about it has passed. Cling to the past if you will. It will be fun but futile, or become a part of the first ever top-down social revolution. You now have a version of the plan same as they do. So if you think you got what it takes to make a usufruct lifestyle in a situation of achieved abundance an option for 10% of your fellow humans, begin by saying out loud, I accept this code of behavior, the statement of unity, and these operating instructions. Then act accordingly. Happy landings.